I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're actually going to cover today. That would be important. So to create a night render, it's super important to place your lights accurately and quickly. All right. So in Lumion, it's difficult to place a light source or a spotlight right in the middle of a can light. That's a difficult thing to do. It's actually, I would even say it's impossible, because there's no way to snap to that point and get your light source placed absolutely perfectly in that can light. Now, why does it matter if it's perfect? Well, in my opinion, if all of your light sources are just a little bit off center, then they're gonna like cast a shadow on the wall, and the scalloping of the light source on the wall is going to be irregular. And it's just not the right look. I want it to just be this perfect thing, and if you just get them a little off center, they start going big scallop, small scallop, big, and it just looks not right. So when I'm placing lights, I want to do it very quickly, and I want to do it extremely accurately and precisely. And I can do that by placing my lights in SketchUp, and I use light nodes. And then I do a node placement in Lumion. So that's really like the big superpower I'm going to teach you today, is node placement. And if you've never used node placement, this is going to blow your mind. If you've never even heard of it, this is going to absolutely blow your mind when I show you how much faster you can be when it comes to placing objects in SketchUp and then basically swapping them out in Lumion. So let's get started. I'm going to show you that today. Here we go. Over to our 3D warehouse, and I'm going to type into the search bar. I'm just going to type in Lumion workflow and do a search. Now you can see that it brings up all of our models right away, and here's our Lumion workflow series 02. And you can also find under collections, we do have a Lumion workflow tutorial series. So let's just go in there. So here's our model that we're going to use today, and I'll bring that up and check it out. This is an office building, again, a real project that we worked on and built it, rendered it, got it out the door. And I'm going to show you the tips and tricks that we use to get this out and actually make money on this project. 9 megabytes. That is a super lightweight model. So I'll go to SketchUp 2019, download that to my desktop temp, and click Save. All right, so then I've downloaded that file. I'll just click on it down there in my downloads bar, and we're going to open up this SketchUp model. Let's see. Let's just open it here. So open from our desktop. Let's go to desktop temp and open up our office building. Here it comes. So we'll say nope, and I'm going to hop back over here. Okay, here's our SketchUp model, and then let's get started. The very first thing that I like to do is send this SketchUp model over to Lumion, and there's no easier way to do that than to split my screen here. And in Lumion, here's the start screen. I just pick a plain environment, and there's no quicker way to get your SketchUp model into Lumion than clicking that Live Sync button. You push that button one time, SketchUp or the Live Sync plugin bundles this model up, sends it over to Lumion, and then it's going to place that model at 000, and it's going to start the camera syncing. So there we go. We're good to go. Now here's the thing about when I send this model over into Lumion, is that this particular model, it is located at 000. This is going to come into play today in a big way. So the base point where we position our models is super critical for node placement. Now I'm sure if you've watched my tutorials, you always hear me say 050. I just put it at 050 because it's just the same number every time. You could pick your own number, it doesn't matter. But as long as it's easy to remember, I just want my models to be placed at the 00 mark in Lumion, and then I want it to be lifted up by, say, 5 feet, just so that I can get the parking lot off the terrain. So let's do that. So my SketchUp model is imported. It's at 000. I'm going to bump that up to 5. And now you can see that my streets are no longer competing with my terrain. All right, so we're good to go. Okay, so now I have adjusted this model just a little bit. So I broke out these planters, all right? And I did this for a reason. So I'm going to right click on the building and choose hide. And I'm gonna right click on the site and choose hide. So I only want to look at these planters. I just wanna focus in and talk about a real simple node placement. All right, now, before we get to that, this node placement thing, you might have to watch this tutorial. If you're new to this, you're gonna have to watch it maybe at least 2 times and until you really get the hang of it, and you gotta practice it because there's a lot of little nuances to it. Now, the way that node placements work is you have a component in SketchUp, and it's just a super simple, we use like a triangle for the spotlight and then this other simple shape for a tree. Well, it's this extremely simplified component, and you place it in SketchUp. And then you're going to take all of those nodes, say for instance of one tree type. You're going to put all those nodes into its own component, and you've got to set the component axes to match the world axes of SketchUp. That is critical, because when you save those out and import them into Lumion, you're going to set those node models at 0, 5, 0. That's why that placement point is so critical here. So we are going to use these nodes. Now, the good news is that I've already created nodes that we use internally for our rendering projects. I've now uploaded those to the 3D warehouse, and they are yours to use. They are super powerful, simple little 3D models. I'm going to show you how to use those. All right. So let's go and expand our SketchUp window first, and then I have a keyboard shortcut, Control-D. That's how I hide my dialogues. I just like to get those out of the way sometimes, especially when I'm splitting my screen. So if I go over to my component browser and type into the 3D warehouse, I'm going to type in Lumion nodes and hit enter. We're going to search the 3D warehouse and check this out. We have a collection by Brightman Designs called Lumion nodes. And let's take a look. We have a tree node, a spotlight node, a line light node, and a shrub node. I'm going to bring each one of these guys into my model like this, and let's scoot this guy over here like that, and then lastly our shrub like that. All right, and let's just take a look at these nodes. Super simple shapes, right? So if I double click into this shrub node, you can see that the component axes are right here at the center, like the bottom center point. Now I can tell you that when this node gets basically swapped in Lumion, the tree is going to be placed right here at these component axes. And a tree is always going to stand straight up in Lumion. There's no way to like get that thing to place and shift around. All right, so same exact concept with our tree node. The tree is going to be placed right here at our component axes. That's where it gets placed in Lumion. Now, the only difference, these are the exact same function. You know, it's just a visual representation of like, maybe you want to have a bunch of nodes for one tree type, and then you're going to use the same, then you can use the same tree node, but make it a unique component. And that way you could kind of swap it out for a different one. But the point is that it's just a visual differentiation between a shrub and a tree. They have the exact same functionality. And to make that point, you could even just use a simple triangle standing up. Doesn't even have to look like a tree. Doesn't mean anything. I just like the way it looks. So anyway, then this is our spotlight node. Now this one gets a little bit tricky. See how this one came in on its side, like laying down? Well, the way that Lumion works is it's going to shine this way along that triangle, all right? And if I double click in here, I can tell you that Lumion will place the light right here at these component axes. That is where that light source will land. Now, the difference is that a light source can be rotated around to face any direction. So when Lumion places that light source, it is going to shine on the dotted green axis. That is the direction. And a few of you might be raising your hands saying, why? I don't know why. I think it has something to do with Lumion's coordinate system being like X, Y, Z, and Y being up, whereas it seems that like in SketchUp, Z is up, but whatever, doesn't matter. Point is, as long as you know that a light placed off of a node is going to shine along the dotted green direction, you're in good shape. Then you can just run with it. So that's what I'm doing. All right, so I'm going to back out of this. And then one other node is our line light node. Okay, so this one is super handy. And I know I've used this in a tutorial before, like on the Master Suite. And the thing about a line light is that they're really, really handy for like cove lighting. So you can put these line lights up in a cove and then like make them long and thin. And but if they're not placed absolutely perfectly, then you get some uneven lighting, and it's impossible to get them placed perfectly. You'll never do it. It's just there's no way to snap to your model to center it perfectly. So you want to place the node in Lumion, and then node place in you want to place the node in SketchUp, save it out, do your node placement in Lumion, and then you get absolute mathematic perfection. Your lighting in those cove ceilings is nice and clean and soft and perfect all the way around. That's the idea here. All right, so same techniques with all of these nodes, but I can tell you that today, the only two nodes that we're going to use are the tree and the spotlight. All right, so let's do that. Let's get our tree placed right in the middle of our planter. All right, so I'm going to move that bottom base point over here, and I'm going to turn on my hidden geometry for just a moment. I'll go to View and turn on hidden geometry. Now, when my hidden geometry is on, I can snap to the midpoint in the group and click. So now my tree is absolutely perfectly situated right in the middle of that planter. So we're good to go. I have a shortcut, Alt-H. I turn hidden geometry on and off all the time. So back out of there, and now I need to get my spotlight node over here. All right, so for this guy, I'm going to rotate it, and we'll just click and drag with our rotate tool, let go, and that's going to set our center point of rotation. I click once to set my reference line, move my cursor to suggest a direction, and then in the bottom right corner of my screen, I'm getting my angle. I'm going to type 90, enter. If you need a hand with move tool, rotate tool, push pull, follow me, grouping, layering, SketchUp for Professionals is our Get Started Now course. It's like 12 hours long. It's everything you need to know about SketchUp. So anyway, that's how I use the rotate tool. I'm now going to move this from point to point, and I snapped it to a midpoint. I'll use my move tool again, tap Control, and that's going to allow me to make a copy, and we're going to snap to our midpoint over there. So we are now in good shape. We have our tree and our two spotlight nodes, and so what I'm going to do now is select both of these, and then we're going to make a copy and an array. So using my move tool, I click once to pick it up, tap Control to make a copy, and then I'm going to click to place it over here. Now I'm going to back up, and I'm going to type 4x and hit enter. You can see the 4x in the bottom right corner of my screen. See, that makes 4 copies down the line. Think of it like a copy machine where you have your original and then it spits out 4 copies. So that's how that copy and array works. All right, so now we're in good shape, but let's take a look at what we've got. All right, so I'm going to hide my dialogues here and just take a look. Now, these trees, these nodes, this is not really what I want. You know, I don't want that look in Lumion. I want it to be real trees. But we don't have the ability to do this like component swap, right? Now, if I had it my way, or if I could just wave a magic wand and know how to just make amazing features in Lumion, which I know is super challenging, and it's easy for someone like myself to say, oh, what it should do is this. But really what would be handy is if Lumion picked up the idea that this is a component, and then I could just replace it with something else. But that feature it's not there. So we have node placement, which is killer because now we can just do a mass placement very quickly. So we're going to need to get these nodes saved out of SketchUp and re-imported into Lumion as their own file. All right, so that's what we're going to do now. All right, so I'm going to expand my SketchUp window, And I'm going to save these guys out or create components based on the objects that I want to place. All right, so I've selected all of my trees. And let me make another, this is another real important comment about SketchUp in general. This right here is the world origin. Now I'm making that term up. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called in 2D CAD. You know, you could change the UCS system around and you can have different axes, but the absolute 0, 0, 0 is what I'm seeing right here. Now, how do I know that? You know, it doesn't look any different. Well, I can tell you that if I use the axes tools and then I come over here and like do some weird axis like that, well, this is just the sketching context. I've changed the sketching context. So now the axes are all over here and wonky. And what that means is that when I'm drawing, you know, now we're drawing on that sketching context, on this different set of axes. Now, I can tell you that if you just simply right-click on any axis and choose Reset, that will put your axes back to the absolute world origin of 0, 0, 0 in SketchUp. Now, check this out. If I right-click, my reset is grayed out. If I see that my reset is grayed out, then I know that I am absolutely at that baseline 0, 0, 0. And this is where, this is what Lumion is picking up on. All right, so it is reading the world origin, and that's what you want to stick with. So when I imported the entire model, we put this point at 0, 0, 0. And when I import my trees, my tree nodes, we're going to need the component to have the exact same base point or origin point. All right, so that's what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to right click on the selection and choose Make Component. Now, I'm going to call the component nodes underscore trees, like that. Now, I don't care about the description, but what's absolutely critical here is set component axes. I'll click on set component axes, come over here, and click 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Now, I can click on create. Make sure that your replace selection with component is checked on. I'll click create. So now, if I double click into this component, you can see that the component's axes are over here. So we're in good shape. Next, I'm going to select all my lights. Watch this. Here's a quick way to do that. I'm going to select my tree group and my planter group, and then I'm going to hold shift and invert my selection. All right. So now I'm going to right click and choose Make Component, and we're going to call these nodes underscore lights. Like that. I'm going to click, and you know what, this time I'm going to make an intentional mistake. I'm going to forget to set my component axes. All right. So we have replace selection with component, and I'll click create. So then I just want to check my work, and I double click in. I go, oh no, my component axes are actually set over here. The component axes are the kind of thicker red, green, and blue line. Now, if you've done that, there's no big deal. All of this stuff is editable. So I can just right click on any axis and choose reset. So that's going to put my sketching context back to 0, 0, 0. Then I can right click in the white space and choose change axes. Now I'm going to set the component axes over there, and we're back to good. So now my trees have the same base point as my model, and my lights have the same base point as my model. We are in good shape. So the last part of this is that I need to then, or one of the final steps, like I said, there are quite a few steps that you need to be aware of, but I need to save these out, and then we're going to import them in. So to save them out, I just right click on the component and choose Save As. I'm going to save this to my desktop and temp folder. And this is already called Nodes Trees because I gave this component a name. So I'll save it, and then I'm going to right click on my lights and choose Save As, and then this goes to Desktop Temp, and you can see this one is called Nodes Lights, and we'll save it there. All right, let's hop back into Lumion. All right, and let's see, we'll split our screen for just a moment. You can see that our live sync is still kicking, and let's expand our, let me hop back into SketchUp. The last part now, these SketchUp nodes have been saved out and I don't need them in SketchUp anymore. And if for some reason I wanted them back, I already have them saved out. So I could always get them back. And so maybe I would put those in like a project folder under miscellaneous if you follow our file management system. But most of the time, these node placement files are throwaway models. So I'm just going to trash them. So I'm going to delete my tree nodes, and I'm going to delete my light nodes. And see, those went away. So now we no longer have those in Lumion. Now, what we need to do is bring them back. So in Lumion, I need to go and import those SketchUp models. So I'm going to go to Import New Model, and we are going to go to our desktop temp. So let's go to desktop temp, and here's my nodes trees. I'm going to click on Open, and we'll just go ahead and bring that guy in. And there's my nodes, okay? I'm not even going to try and get it right. I'll just click. Then I'm going to push the M key. That brings me to my select tool. So now I can move things around, and then I can click on Type In. Check it out. The position of this model needs to be 0, 5, 0. And look at that. This model is now this independent piece that's brought in. All right. Now, with my tree still selected, this SketchUp model of just the tree nodes is still selected. I'm going to go to my advanced options and click on Place Item on Nodes, like that. Now, I'm going to choose an object from the nature library, and I know that on this project we used a birch tree. So I click on Search, and then I'm going to type into the search field birch. And I'm actually pretty familiar with the birch trees in Lumion, and I know that, like, you know, any of these guys are going to look good. And check that out. See what it's doing? I can go through, and this is actually some improved functionality. This node placement has been around for a while, but like I want to say in Lumion 9, we got some improved functionality and the ability to kind of not just dump that one model. It's now we can choose from all the different libraries, and we can see them placed in real time, you know, before we actually commit to the final model. So I think I like this one, and then I can click on OK. And look what happened. It got rid of my node model. It's gone, right? Perfect. Let's do it again. I'm going to click, this time I'm going to bring the sun down to kind of a night render here. I'm going to go back to my objects, and we're going to import a new model. This time I'm going to bring in my nodes lights and choose Open. All right. So now we're just going to say OK. And now these are the lights, the nodes that represent my lights. So I'll just click once there. I'm going to hit the M key on the keyboard and go down here to Type In. And here I can set these guys to be at 0, 5, and 0. Like that. Check it out. Just like that, my light nodes are now perfectly in place. Wonderful. Now, the light nodes are still selected. So if they weren't selected, you know, if I like deselect all, you just need to make sure that that model is selected. Then on the advanced options, I can click on Place Item on Nodes. This time, I'm going to choose from my lights and utilities. And then I'm going to come over here and click on any of these different lights, and you can see that we have, like, you know, different arrays and spreads of lights. And you know, I don't know that it truly matters. I just pick one that's kind of interesting and different than the others, and I think we're in good shape there. So check that out. Now we're getting these up lights on the trees perfect, just like that. So I'll check OK, and we are good to go. Now, there is one little thing that you need to clean up, and that's over here. Check it out. This is my model base point. This is the world origin, and we placed the objects on the node origins, and we get one on the world origin. So all I need to do is come over here, and I'm going to delete, we'll go with our tree, and I'm going to delete my tree, and I'll go to my lights and utilities and delete my light. And now all of this is still intact like that. There we are. Okay, so now I'm going to split my screens again and hop back into SketchUp with the split screen. I'm going to go to Edit and choose Unhide All. And now, there we are. So you can see how easy it can be to just do some node placement. You know, it's not impossible. And imagine if you had like, you know, if you're using a plugin like Scatter and drop in like a whole forest, and then you want to just do nodes in Lumion, you can do that. Also, if you've placed your lights already in SketchUp, you can just swap, like duplicate those light components and then swap them with the nodes and then run it over here. So this node placement is extremely powerful. It is well worth taking, like say it takes you 2 hours to tinker with this tutorial and really understand it. And like, you know, the first time you do it, you'll probably goof it up. Second time, you'll probably have it right. Third, fourth, fifth, now you own it. So just take the 2 hours it takes to fully understand the axes, the sketching context, you know, saving these components out, get your process dialed in, and when it comes time to use it on a real project, you will blow through it. So super powerful. Good news, I'm going to show you how to do this again. We're going to go through and we're going to do all of our lights using node placement. All right, so this is kind of the simple introduction to node placement, but now we're going to hop back, we're going to go back and do all of our lights. All right.